So today I had a really strange dream, and it got me thinking about something called lucid dreaming. All right, so basically, my dream was that me and a friend were walking through a forest, and in this forest, it was like a hiking trail. Basically, it was very deep, very steep, dense, and it was just like this weird glowing green that came from the trees. And as we were walking, my friend was telling me of these really strange stories of things he read in a book. And they were all about like some strange prolific murderer or thing like that, like a serial killer basically. And he was telling me like one of them that he read about was really strange in the sense that he'd go and he'd uncover bodies, and then I'm not quite so sure what he did with them, I can't remember. And then the other one was a guy who used a boomerang as his, sort of death tool, if you will. And I don't really know what would happen, but I guess he'd throw them, and then he'd put them in their brain to make it look like they were getting scanned. And so we're talking, yada, yada, yada. Things go on. We're still walking. And then somehow the topic of Bigfoot came up. Okay? And it was weird because we were talking about him. He was suggesting the possibility that he could exist. And I was downright ignoring that. I was saying, no, Bigfoot doesn't exist. And we kept going back and forth about this, trying to disprove or prove whether or not Bigfoot existed or a similar creature such as Bigfoot existed. And as we talked, it got darker and darker because we were getting into the more dense parts of the forest. And once we got on one of the final stretches of this hike, we just stopped. We just subconsciously stopped. We didn't have a reason to. Nothing was frightening us or anything. We just stopped. And after about a minute or so of stopping, we hear this like twig crack. Like it came straight out of like a horror movie or something. We saw this twig crack and some insanely tall, hairy figure, which I presume was a Bigfoot, supposedly. And in this instant, during the dream, I freaked out and I started running backwards as fast as I could. And I started going over everything, but my friend, he's a much slower runner than I am. And so I'd stop about every minute or two, make sure he was still there. And on one of the passes that this trail led us to, we had to sort of like hug the wall and make this like very narrow pathway. And I remember I passed it and I was like out of breath and tired, and I waited for him. And when he got to that point, he just froze. And I didn't know why. He just froze, I think out of fear maybe. And then all of a sudden I saw this big, tall, dark figure, like it had to have been like 8 or 9 feet, just come out of nowhere. And that was it. My alarm clock rang, I woke up, and boom, the story never ended. But when I woke up, I remember I was like panting, and I felt my heart, I was beating so fast, like as if I had truly been the one running. And it just struck me as so bizarre, like how on earth could a dream mimic like real life things, like heart beating fast, feeling tired, exhausted, out of breath, when I hadn't moved an inch, And it just got me thinking about something called lucid dreaming. And there's a lot of debate over whether or not lucid dreaming actually exists, but there's a part of our brain that we don't quite understand. There's actually a lot of our brain that we don't actually understand. And it's said that when we sleep, our brain like goes on different frequencies. It projects dreams during REM sleep, and it's really all quite strange. Now, some people believe that when you're dreaming, you're like sent to an alternate dimension, which is not very probable at all. But what most people believe is that it's your subconscious constantly thinking. And when you think about that, that means that if that theory is true, you never actually stop thinking, even when you're not conscious, because your subconscious is dreaming for you. And so I've read up a lot on this topic. I've read books actually on lucid dreaming. And so when you're in a dream, you see it almost as a movie sometimes. Sometimes you're just watching yourself. Other times you're in the first person and you're actively doing something, whatever you're dreaming of. But most of the time you don't have control. Now, what lucid dreaming experts say is that if you can figure out when you're not conscious, meaning in the subconscious, then you could somehow gain control over your subconscious and be somehow conscious in your subconscious dream, if you know what I'm saying, which would basically be like, okay, if you're walking in your dream on a beach and you master becoming a lucid dreamer, then you could deviate from that sidewalk you're walking on and go in the ocean. Like, you basically take control of yourself. And there have been many studies that actually prove this. Like one study I read, which was insane actually, was that lucid dreaming can help you improve your abilities in real life. And so this one group got a bunch of kids who did karate, and they all told them that while they lucid dream, they had to practice their moves. Now, this wasn't like a one-time thing that they magically just lucid dreamed. It was over like months of planning and preparation where they taught the kids certain tricks, which would be like, when you're lucid dreaming, things aren't in reality, right? So they'd say, okay, look at your hand. If you can bring it back and forth and it stays the same, then it's not a dream. But if you do this, or knock on stuff, anything really, and it's not normal, then you're lucid dreaming. So what would happen is if I'm doing this, when I put it back, my hand would not show a finger or something like that, or I'd have too many fingers. Or if I'm knocking, my arm would go through the door, like things that don't make sense. Then you know you're dreaming. So over months of trying this out and writing down older dreams, it took a while before they got to the point where they could actually start mastering it and becoming conscious in their dreams. And so these kids, once they did it, they'd practice, in a sense, their dreams, and they'd be in their dreams doing karate. You know, oftentimes fighting villains or almost like movie scenes. And what was incredible was they found that these kids improved by over 80% in 2 weeks, which is like, I don't even know how to put it into words. Like, it's amazing. They're not doing anything really, yet somehow improving. And, you know, this lucid dreaming thing can be true. I actually know a buddy of mine who experiences things like that, and his lucid dreams are strange. He'll have too many toes or something like that, and I'll be like, okay, I'm dreaming. And sometimes from other people I know, they say that when they're lucid dreaming, it'll be like they're on the beach and then the sand turns different colors or crazy things. And I thought, or am thinking really, that this dream of mine could have been, in a sense, a form of that. Now, I wasn't in control at all. I was like scared of my life, and I did not enjoy the dream. But it sort of re-enlisted that thought, that what if our subconscious it really is projecting these images or memories in ways we can't comprehend. So like when I was in the dream, I was scared. My heart was beating, I was panting when I woke up, and I wasn't even running though. So what if those two worlds are sort of combined, and they're not really worlds, it's more just like dreaming phase and conscious phase. But my guess is that these two parts of you is really imagination and non-imagination. Now, sure, that seems obvious, but I'm talking about like fantasies or things you dream about during the day. Like if you dream of flying and you've wished it for a long time, then maybe in your dream that fantasy would come true. Maybe you'll be able to fly. And I don't really know what to think of it. I think lucid dreaming is amazing. I've never experienced it, but from what I've read, it seems quite amazing actually. And so I was wondering what you guys think. Do you think lucid dreaming could be true? Or do you think that it's all a hoax? And just to put that in perspective, there's people who literally think that your brain travels dimensions when you sleep. So I don't think it's that far-fetched an idea. But just to reiterate it, it's basically you think of something, and then days later, maybe even years later, your subconscious digs it out, and you can relive it in a dream. And the idea is that if you can conquer your subconscious, then maybe one day you'll be able to conquer all consciousness, which means that instead of being idle for 8 hours a day sleeping, you could be productive. That's gonna be all for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Think it's strange. I don't know. I think it's a bit strange. If you think it's cool, maybe, or have any ideas or thoughts, please let me know in the comments below. If you liked it, please come back. Subscribing is free. And I'll see you next time.